Hey guys, it's Kay. I hope you're all well. Now, if you're a long-time viewer of this channel, you'll know I'm an avid fan of all things Raspberry Pi, be it software or hardware. Now, we all know the Raspberry Pi is the most popular single-board computer. It can pretty much do anything a desktop computer can do. Now, the Raspberry Pi OS is the officially supported operating system, and it's a versatile OS that's guaranteed to be polished and benefit from continued development. There's a few different options available, including a desktop variant with recommended software, and a bare-bones desktop image and a minimal command line only option. Now, because the Raspberry Pi is so popular among hobbyists and developers, there's a whole host of operating systems for the Raspberry Pi that you can explore, each with their own unique trait, and they offer some exciting features. So today is rather special. I thought I'd put together my top 5 Raspberry Pi operating systems for you. If you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with the latest tech tutorials, reviews and unboxings, I do everything including Fire Stick, Raspberry Pi and Android TV tips and tricks, so subscribe and hit the notification button. So at number 5, it's Ubuntu from Canonical. Now, the great thing about this is that it's been officially optimized for the Raspberry Pi 4 by Canonical. So we're going to get desktop support for learners, inventors and tinkerers. We get a certified Ubuntu desktop environment, just like the big guns Lenovo, HP, Dell. And the great thing about all this is we can look forward to long-term support and security updates. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at this desktop environment for the Raspberry Pi 4. So once you've downloaded the latest copy of Ubuntu for the Raspberry Pi 4 and you've flashed it onto an SD card using the Pi Imager, you're going to get the following funky looking desktop, and we've got to first set up system configuration. So I'm going to set my language as English and keyboard layout UK, and I'm going to set my region to London, and finally you set up your username and password, and then it'll just go on and configure the system settings you just set. Now this can take up to 5 minutes, so patience is the name of the game here. So in this new Ubuntu desktop 20.10, the new GNOME 3.38 brings a number of UI improvements to the Ubuntu experience. The app grid has been tweaked to remove the Frequents tab, and this allows apps to be reorganized, and the battery percentage display can be toggled in the power settings, and there's easy private Wi-Fi sharing through auto-generated QR codes, and finally a restart option has been added next to the logout and power down menu options. Okay, so once it's finished applying the changes, it will automatically reboot into the full system. Now, from here you can choose to connect to all your online accounts. I'm just going to skip that, and I'm going to do a no to send system information, and then next, and I'm going to leave location services off. So we get a little note telling us we can use software to install all these apps, and the Plex media server looks appealing to me. Now straight away we get an option to update to the latest version of Ubuntu. I'm going to skip this for the moment. So taking a quick look around, on the top right hand corner we've got our usual host of settings. Wired connections, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, settings, lock and power off and log out. Taking a quick look at settings. Highly customizable as always with Ubuntu here. And of course applications wise we're fully loaded with everything you're going to need to be productive. We've got Firefox browser and we've got a full suite of LibreOffice. Everybody loves free software, and especially free software that's useful. Now of course Ubuntu's got you covered for system monitoring, and I find this quite useful, especially the graphical display. All system resources all in one place, and easily digestible. Now Firefox works perfectly as you'd expect, although anything past 1080p did cause stuttering and tearing.
Alright, what's up? MKBHD here, and inside this kinda huge box is...
So let's take a quick look at Rhythmbox, the free open source music player. So with this you can play the music you've actually got on your system, and you can actually stream music as well from the internet. Now, one of the great things about Ubuntu is the amount of certified apps you get with it. As you can see, there's loads of categories, loads to choose from. Now, if you look under Entertainment, you can actually find Plex, and I have currently got this running on my Raspberry Pi, and it works absolutely great. So in summary guys, Ubuntu 20.1 is the first Ubuntu release to feature desktop images for the Raspberry Pi. It includes the latest version of GNOME version 3.38 with an enhanced activities overview. And best of all, it's free to download and it's available at their website, links in the description below guys. At number 4, it's the Raspberry Pi OS Big Sur edition. Now it's brought to us by the Raspberry Pi Project and More team, and it's based on the Monkajaro KDM Plasma 20.08, and it's been skinned to look like OS X Big Sur edition. So without further ado, let's take a look. Now the password to log in is Apple Pi OS. Now on the surface you can see it resembles the Apple ecosystem very closely, but if you dig a little bit deeper you'll see that it's actually based on the KDE Plasma version. And as I'm running this with a Raspberry Pi 4 with 4GB memory, I have full access to that 4GB of RAM. Now along the bottom you can see we've got the full macOS menu bar appearance, with the famous zoom in zoom out effect as you roll over it. And of course along the top we've got the normal taskbar with all its functions, the famous search function which I've always found handy to find a quick application, and if I type in Paint we're going to get the GNU program for image manipulation. So of course guys, you know this all by now, it's the usual friendly Apple interface. Everything's all very intuitive, which is one of Apple's claims to fame. It's like one of the 10 Apple commandments. Now a nice touch the team's added here is, I believe, a quick access to their Discord website. So once you've downloaded the image and flashed it onto an SD card, if you have any issues or problems, just log in here and you can just ask away. They're all a friendly bunch. Now, sticking to the ethos of having a load of useful programs in one place, we've got access to the Raspberry Pi Imager, so we can flash new images for our Raspberry Pi right here. And we've got access to Spectacle, which is an application for capturing the desktop environment, as us Pi users are quite a productive lot. Now, just like macOS, we've got access to the launchpad from the menu bar, and of course this distro comes with a full suite of useful applications, so we don't need to download them individually ourselves. Now, some of my favourites are Chromium, Firefox, the Pi Imager of course, and not forgetting of course the full suite of LibreOffice. And that covers databases, Excel, Draw, Presentation, and not forgetting Write. Now on the second page, most of our gaming needs are taken care of. And by gaming I mean retro gaming. So we've got Minecraft, we've got OBS Studio, which of course is for broadcasting, and can be used to broadcast your gaming experience. Now the other game related app here is of course RetroArch. And of course on the previous page we had the Dolphin emulator, so it's all set up ready to go, all you need is your ROMs. Now also on the menu bar we've got access to the app manager. So of course there's a great variety of apps to install and uninstall, and they're all categorized for easy access. So let's take a quick look at my favorite emulator, which is PPSP, which is the PlayStation Portable. Now I haven't got my USB with my ROMs attached, but of course it's free to download within the app, Retro Games. And one of my favorite homebrew games is of course Chucky Egg. Now moving on to browsing the internet with web browsers, they've got Chromium installed, the Media Edition. Now there's a quirky little thing here, you need to log in for some reason, and the password is of course Apple Pi OS. I actually found this Chromium Media Edition to be quite laggy, especially at 1080p. And I had to reduce the quality to 720p to get some reasonable playback, but even then it was hit and miss. I had a much more favourable experience with the Firefox browser. It played without any judder or jitter, and here's an example of the 007 trailer, which I'm definitely going to watch next year.
Past isn't dead.
James, fate draws us back together. Now your enemy's my enemy.
So overall guys, this is a great little distro, and I hope they fix that little issue with the Chromium web browser. Tons of features and looks, great apps all in one place, what more could you ask for? Congrats to the team for getting this out, it makes the Raspberry Pi more usable and accessible to all users. Now at number 3, based on Manjaro 20.04 and it's called Monkajaro, and the great thing about it is that it comes pre-installed with a shed load of software, and the thing that caught my eye was the amount of pre-installed standalone emulators, including Dolphin, RetroArch, PSP, Nintendo 64, Game Boy and SNES, just to name a few. Okay, so taking a quick look around, we can see that it's based on Manjaro and it is a 64-bit Arch Linux-based operating system. And along the bottom we've got our standard set of icons, including date, time, audio, notifications, etc. We've also got access to the add and remove programs from here, but you probably won't be using this much, because as I said earlier, this distro is packed to the gills with software. Now on the desktop we got access to Etcher, so you can write your operating system straight to memory card from your Raspberry Pi 4. Next we have Scraper UI, this is basically used to download thumbnail pictures for your ROMs. And then we have PPS-SPP, which of course is the PlayStation Portable emulator. Now along the bottom we've got Firefox web browser, Dolphin file manager, and we have access to the terminal. And finally we have system settings. Now taking a look at the start menu, I'm going to focus on the game section. Now there are some pre-installed games, and the ones that stood out to me were the tactics and strategy games. Now all three of these seemed like different versions of the same game, and the game they're based upon is Command & Conquer Red Alert. So it's your classic online multiplayer strategy game, where you have to build up your resources and attack your opponents. And like I mentioned earlier, it comes in 3 different flavours. Now further down the menu you're going to come across all the emulators this distro packs in, and this includes Dolphin, MAME, RetroArch and SNES. Now I'm going to look at the PSP emulator first as it's on the desktop. Now I'm using my PS4 controller via a USB cable. And as you can see in the recent folder, I've been playing some games on this already. So clicking on the games tab, you're going to get all your games displayed. Now I've just connected a USB thumb drive with all my games on it. So let's have a go with Street Fighter Alpha Max.
Street Fighter Alpha 3. Select your character.
As you can see, it's running pretty smoothly and no issues. Now I'm going to play a little bit of this game and then move on to the next.
It all depends on your skill. Go for broke.
I love this old guy. Okay, let's try another game. Now no intro is needed for this, it's Mortal Kombat. Now again I'm going to play a bit more of this and then move on to the next one. Okay guys, there's no issues with this, it runs pretty smoothly, I've had to do no alterations. Now you may or may not know this, but you can download some homebrew games, and these are normally retro games, so it's right up my alley. And you can see I've downloaded and installed Chucky Egg. Now this game brings back a lot of memories for me, as I used to play it all the time in the day, so anyway it's worth having a look in the homebrew tab, as you'll probably come across some golden nuggets. Okay, moving along, I'm going to take a look at RetroArch on this distro. So the great thing here is that it opens up in a Windows mode, and we can easily maximize this, for better enhanced gameplay. Now for convenience, they've already pre-installed most of the cores you're going to need. You've got your Sonys, your Nintendos, your Segas, your MAME. Now on my USB stick I've only got some Sega Mega Drive games and some PSP games. And take it from me, the PSP games were great, no problems or issues. So with this RetroArch, I'm going to concentrate on my Sega Mega Drive games. And the first one I'm going to look at is Afterburner. Okay, now the sound does sound a bit sketchy, so I probably need to delve deeper into the settings and figure this out. But everything else is just like the classic game. Controls are as you would expect, and quite responsive. Okay, the next game is Addams Family. Another classic. I used to love the music on this game. Sadly we can't hear it too well here. But like I said, it's just a case of adjusting in the settings. Okay, the next game is Batman and Robin. And it's basically another horizontal scroll game, which used to be quite popular on this platform. Okay, next I'm going to try Aliens 3. Wow, has it been that long? I seem to have the tendency to get killed a lot in this game. Now the next emulator I'm looking at is the SNES emulator, which is a Super Nintendo. And as soon as you fire it up, all you need to do is navigate your way to where your games are. And in this case I'm going to play Street Fighter 2. So guys, overall this is a great build to use. It's got loads of software, and not just for gaming, a full suite of office software including graphics, and not forgetting development and education programs. Now at number 2, it's an operating system put together by a single developer, and it's called Fenix OS. Now the first thing you'll notice is that you can actually change the type of desktop you log into. By simply clicking on the top left hand corner you can select, and I'm going to select the XFCE session. Now at this point it's worth noting you can actually log into different themed operating systems. And these include Windows 10, Windows 7, Windows 95, and there's Mac, and then there's Ubuntu, and then there's also Windows XP. But of course I'm going to log into his Fenix themed operating system, which is the first one. So we log in with the password Fenix, and this is it guys, there's a lot to see here. So the first thing we can see is that we've got a lot of widgets on the desktop, and the first one consists of a time, date, and under that we've got hard disk, RAM and CPU utilization. And below that we've got some more widgets. We've got a graphical representation of your download speed, and below that we've got a more detailed view of the CPU utilization, which also gives us details of the processes using the CPU. And then below that we've got RAM utilization, which also gives us details of processes using it. And below that we've got another widget representing the CPU with all the 4 cores. I've got to say I'm a fan of all these widgets and details on the desktop. Now along the bottom we've got a funny little thing with an animation of Bart Simpson on the quick access menu bar. Now as you can see along the bottom it's a bit like the Apple OS menu system, but on steroids. You get little explosions when you highlight an app and the little character follows you along. Now you do get all the standard applications that you would get in a standard Pi OS build, along with all the features like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. Now along top we've also got another menu, and noticeably we've got access to overclocking the CPU. And also a nice little touch we've got here is access to notes, and quick access to restore and minimize windows. We've got access to Clipman, which is like clipboard. We've got volume control here, and we've got our wired internet access point here, and then we've got our main menu here with access to all our applications. Now as mentioned before, in terms of applications we've got a whole suite of categories. So first one is settings. Here we've got everything we need to customize our experience, and of course accessories, where we've got a whole load of useful apps. Looks like we've got Chrome applications here with access to Netflix and Spotify, development and education. We've got games, and we've got access to Minecraft Pi, and of course Steam Link. We've got graphics including GIMP Shop and LibreDraw. We've got internet, and we've got Chromium Media Edition as well as the normal edition. We've got multimedia including sound and video players, and of course we've got Office with a whole suite of LibreOffice. Now in system settings I've noticed we've got access to PiKiss. Now this is great because we can add all sorts of useful software including game simulators. Okay, on the end of the menu we've got a logout. If we right click on the desktop we can get access to our desktop settings. So let's just quickly change our desktop picture, and there you go guys, nice and clean. Now what I'm going to show you next is something I've never seen in any operating system on the Raspberry Pi 4, so it's quite impressive. Now to show you this, we first need to click on Compiz Start here on the desktop, and that will just start up a script file. Now if I go to the top left hand corner you'll see it show me all my desktops. Now you might be thinking this is not impressive, I've seen this before, but let's just quickly open up some applications for each of the desktops to show you what I mean. Okay, so now I have applications open up on all my desktops. But now, watch what happens when I click on Alt and Control and drag my mouse across. Absolutely amazing, 3D rendition of our desktops. Even the windows look like they're floating on the desktop. Now for all this to be working on a Raspberry Pi 4 with so much fluidity is amazing. It's all very smooth and there's no stuttering. The Raspberry Pi 4 is coping with all this with ease. Now the last thing I want to show you on this desktop is the way the windows act when you move them around. You get this kind of a wave effect, which is pretty smart. Okay, so let's log out and let's try another one of these desktops. Click on the applications menu and we should find logout here. And there it is. Now this should bring us back to the main login screen. So let's try number 10 next. And this is probably going to be Windows 10. Now password is Fenix. And we're correct. And it looks like a pretty good theme on Windows 10. We've got our application shortcuts along the bottom here. And we've got our main menu here with all our menu items and our little search bar here. Yeah, everything's here. We've got Office, Multimedia, Internet, Graphics and Education. And we've also got our Windows-like icons here on the bottom right hand side of the menu. And again, if we right click on the desktop, we can change our desktop settings. Now again, like before, let's try that desktop effect. Now I believe we need to click on this XFCE effects. And then if we go to the top left hand corner, we're going to see all our desktops like before. And again, if we hold Alt and Control and drag with our mouse, we're going to get the effect. And wow, we're getting a fish tank effect here. And instead of being outside the box, we're actually inside the box. I must say, this is pretty cool. Okay, let's go and have a look at one of these other themed desktops. So start menu, logout. Oh, and a nice little warp effect. Let's click on logout. Okay, so the next one is number 7. So this looks like a Windows 7 theme. Again, we log in with the Fenix password. And yes, so if you like Windows 7, this is the one for you. So we've got all our shortcuts along the bottom here with our Office suite, and we've got the classic looking Windows 7 start menu. Now we've got all the applications we have in the other themes, so quickly scrolling through you can see we've got everything here. Now let's try that desktop effect. We need to click on this Compiz Start, and yes, again we click on the top left, we get the desktops, and if we Control Alt and drag our mouse we get the effect, which is pretty cool as always. Okay, let's log out and see the next desktop theme. The next one is named number 95, and I presume this is Windows 95. Now the next one after that is called No Mac, so I presume this is going to be a Mac themed desktop. Let's give this one a go. So the password is Fenix as usual, and yeah, it looks great. It looks like your latest Mac version. You've got your menu along the bottom with all your apps, and just like Mac up top we have got a secondary menu bar with your dates, your network settings, Now there's tons here to see and I can't really go through it all, but it's always worth having a go yourselves. Now I'm dying to try this Windows effect again, so if I click on effects I believe this should work. Yes, and there you go. Now pressing Ctrl Alt and dragging, and there we go, we get the Windows effect. Pretty cool, with a little cog inside. So guys, I highly recommend you have a look at this, it's pretty amazing. So let's now go and have a look at the last two themes. Now this one is called No Unity, and I presume it's Ubuntu. Password again is Fenix, and we've got our menu on the side here. We've got Mozilla, VLC, command prompt, and we've got a little search function here. This looks like LibreOffice, and of course up top we have the main menu. So if you're used to Ubuntu, you'll know your way around here. Now top right, we've got access to the App Store. Now I wonder what this is, QB, and it's QBitTorrent, so if you like torrenting, this is the one for you. Now if I do a quick search for the app called Compiz, I can show you the desktop effect, and there it is. Hold Ctrl Alt and drag your mouse, and there we go, we get the effect. Now I'm glad that he's included this effect on all the themes, it's pretty cool. Okay guys, so now we're on the last but not least theme, and it's called No XP, so it looks like it's going to be a Windows XP theme. And it's basically more of the same with a Windows XP theme. So guys, as I mentioned before, I highly recommend you go and download this distro. If anything, it shows you what the Raspberry Pi 4 is capable of, and it's a lot of fun along the way. Now I've left links in the description below on where you can download this. So guys, you've guessed it, my top favourite OS for the Raspberry Pi 4 is Twister OS. Now the great thing about Twister OS is that you can actually switch between a load of different themed operating systems. These include Raspbian 95, Raspbian XP, which are themed on Windows 95 and Windows XP. We've also got Nighthawk, Raspbian X, iRaspbian and iRaspbian Dark, and these are themed on Windows 10 and Mac OS. Now we'll look at this feature later on in the video. Now as far as looks and aesthetics go, Pi Labs has nailed it with Twister OS. So taking a quick look around, on the top right hand corner we have the power down button. And from here we've also got access to logout, restart, suspend and hibernate. And next to that we have our calendar, we have our volume controls, and we've got our network controls. We've also got access to our peripherals next to that, Bluetooth access and controls, and of course CPU information. Now looking on the bottom we've got access to Catfish, the file search. So let's say I want to search for a text document, I just type in txt and it's going to bring up all the text documents. Next to that we've got access to Mousepad, which is like Notepad, so for quick note taking, and of course we've got quick access to the terminal. And next to that we've got Mail, which also includes contacts and schedules. Now at first glance this looks pretty good, and it looks well polished. I could definitely see myself using this. Now next to that on the menu we've got add and remove programs, and of course as usual we've got loads of categories and software. Now a quick note here, some of these might be x86 based, so they may not work on the Raspberry Pi, but there's enough here to keep you busy. Now we've also got access to Chromium, the media edition, and of course this works brilliantly with YouTube, Netflix, etc. And for me 1080p works flawlessly. Now another thing here is we've got quick access to a load of installed apps. You've got Pi Commander, Steam, Reference Material, Partition Editor, DOSBox, and of course PiKiss and RetroPie for gaming needs. Basically everything you could possibly think of, and more. The guys really have done a great job in getting all this software together. It's going to save me and you a lot of trouble installing this separately. Now the other great thing on the desktop is access to Commander Pi, which essentially lets you overclock your Raspberry Pi. You can also access your CPU details, and bootloader details, network details, and of course as I mentioned overclocking details. So you basically just input your values here. So I'm going to go for the recommended values, and then you just click on apply and reboot. But I'm not going to do that now. Now my absolute favourite feature is the Theme Twister app. This allows you to change the look of your operating system. Now of course it is only a theme, but it is very realistic. So like I mentioned earlier, you've got access to Twister OS, Raspbian 95, Raspbian XP, Nighthawk, and you've got Raspbian X and iRaspbian, and last of all iRaspbian Dark. And to switch between the themes, all you need to do is click on the theme and you'll get a quick preview. And if you're happy with it, just press enter to continue. It'll then reboot into your chosen theme. So this is iRaspbian Dark, and as you can see it's based on Mac OS. Now everything's where it should be as if it was a Mac system. You've got your menu full of apps on the bottom, and if I open up settings, you'll see you get all your Apple icons, and because this is the dark theme, everything's black, including the windows and the backgrounds. So all these icons and apps look and feel just like the Mac OS, including the calendar here. And along the top we've got all our respective icons, including calendar, shutdown, lockdown, and access to all your workspaces. And along the other side we've got access to desktop settings, and I must say there's loads of colour here to brighten up anyone's day. Now we can also access all the applications along the top menu here. And I do actually prefer this, it's all categorized, so I'm able to get to anything I need quite quickly. Anyway guys, I do recommend you go and visit Pi Lab's website. There you'll find the links to the latest Distro OS. And once again, I'd just like to congratulate the Pi Labs team. They've succeeded in making one of my favourite OSs for the Pi 4. So guys, if you found this video helpful, give us a like and maybe even a subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.